Well, great to start with crying, tearing up a little bit. Well, thank you, Pastor Lane. Thanks for being my mentor, my pastor, my friend. I love you. And I love all of you guys, my family, my friends, my forever family. Thank you so much for supporting me and encouraging me. I am a grateful believer in Christ, and I'm in recovery for anger, resentment, pornography, being a workaholic, and anxiety. Before I was in recovery, I had a lot of issues that I never knew how to work through. And I was angry at my family for all my shortcomings growing up. I had resentments toward me and my family members that I never knew I was upset about. And I was addicted to pornography at the age of 12. And for years, I was battling anxiety I'd never realized I had. My family was in church when I was very young, but when I was about 12, my parents left the church and ran from God. Coincidence that I was the same age when I started my pornography? I think not. During that season away from church, I struggled with the idea of God's love for me. But through continuous bad things happening to my family and I became very hateful and an angry person. Before we stopped going to church consistently, I grew up in a Christian family in Little Rock. We went to church every week, and we were highly involved in Royal Rangers, a ministry for boys, and junior Bible quiz. Those programs are a big reason for the man I am today. My parents were foster parents and decided to start adopting kids. My parents had the huge hearts for their kids, but things did not go as planned. My dad had an excellent job and a reputation at work where he was a valuable employee, but lost his good-paying job as a truck driver because of an accident he was in. After losing his truck driving job, he decided to go back to college and get a degree as a computer analyst. During this time, my mom became very sick, and the doctors prescribed her oxycodone and other drugs to help with the pain. My mom was in bed all the time, and she did not know what was happening for many years. As a result, my mother unintentionally became addicted to painkillers. My sister and I were homeschooled, but because of my mom's sickness and prescription drug addiction, my sister and I didn't get the attention we needed, and we fell behind in our academics. I have 5 siblings, 2 brothers and 3 sisters: Tyler, Ryan, Hannah, Jesse, and Allie. As my siblings got older, they got further and further from church. So it became more difficult for me to attend church every week because they would work or my parents were sick and discouraged. I eventually found a way to start getting back to the church through church friends who would drive 20 or 30 minutes out of their way to pick me up. Thanks, Miss Nancy. Appreciate you. Tensions were high in my family because everyone in the family felt the stress of the situation. My dad engulfed himself in work and grew increasingly discouraged and distant. 2 of my adopted siblings started struggling internally with the hurts of the biological family. They began to act out in ways that caused my parents much pain. And all my siblings started to get further and further from each other. None of us got along, and conversations usually end up in an argument when we're together. My adopted siblings caused each of my family members, including myself, a lot of hurt and resentment because of things going on in our home life and the past pain from their birth families before they came to us. There was much baggage that came along with the kids from foster care, and I unfairly associated my family's financial issues with the presence of my adopted siblings, which also caused a lot of resentment. One of my sisters decided to return their birth mom after she turned 18. Another sister had a lot of mental health issues and has been in almost every mental health facility in Arkansas. She ran away with a drug dealer, and when she returned, she made up false allegations about me that caused even more tensions within the family. I struggled with a lot of anger and resentment. My anger was so bad that it became physical. I punched cabinets, walls, trees, and even my own siblings. I didn't realize how bad my anger was until God started to convict me for it. I realized it was not just my siblings' fault for our unhealthy relationships. I was a self-righteous brother who stayed in church and blamed them for my shortcomings. I learned that my anger put a wedge between us and would not help them come back to church. I was self-righteous, but I was also a hypocrite. because I struggled with porn, but I didn't act like it. I also had much anger for my family because I thought everyone was against me and they hated me. I thought everyone was talking bad about me because I was painfully insecure. And I thought everyone in the church, including the pastors, didn't like me because of the issues that my family caused. My sisters caused a lot of tension between my parents and the leaders of the church. After a few accidental overdoses on medication, my family figured out what my mother's doctors were doing. She was being overprescribed. When we found that out, she started to do a lot better, but between two events, such as my grandma passing and my sister running away, my mother fell into a deep depression. She became much worse than I'd ever seen her before. She was not herself, and I didn't recognize her as my mother. She was a crazy, unpredictable woman that frequently wigged out. Eventually, to my relief, my dad tried to place her in a mental health facility. But to my dismay, the doctors wrongly judged that she was not a danger to herself. Thankfully, she never harmed herself, but a moment that stood out to me in my nightmares was when I found her in the closet threatening to kill herself. There, she said, "I would never do that if you were going to hell." When I was 14 years old, my mom started making a lot of personal growth, and we began Celebrate Recovery. When it first started, my mom started attending, and I started helping Miss Nancy with the kids at CR. After 2 years with the kids, Miss Marcia decided to force me to join the teens group, and they made me go to service with the adults. I did not want to go, y'all. I hated it. I didn't understand why everyone yelled. I didn't understand the terminology that was being used or the importance of the work that was being done. I didn't see how it related to my life. Although I didn't like coming, I continued. But I started to listen to people in small groups and saw a weekly change in people. I realized that I started going to CR with a predetermined idea that I was not like the people here and I didn't have any problems with addiction. I saw my porn addiction as something all guys did because that's what my brothers told me. I realized that my addiction to porn changed how I looked at women, how I determined my time and thoughts, how I'd always want more. I was never satisfied and I was never content. When I realized the sinfulness of my thoughts and how detrimental looking at porn was to my mental health, I decided to stop. I talked to my leaders to see how I can fix it. My pastors give me verses and exercises whenever I get my mind off of the immoral things. Galatians 5:19-21 says, "The acts of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, and witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, and envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will never inherit the kingdom of God." This serves as a reminder of the detriment of what something people see as natural can do. The step study that I was a part of helped me learn how to process through my emotions that I kept deep within my darkest parts of my brain. As I listened to Pastor Lane's teachings, I realized that the 12 steps are not just for drug addicts and alcoholics. They're for anyone. I realized that I resented the Bible for how people used and corrupted the word to manipulate people to get what they wanted. When I was younger, I came to the realization that I had anger in my heart for how people twist the Bible for their own sexist, racist, and hateful agendas. It made me sick. And for a long time, I did not trust the Bible until I realized that it was not God who did it, it was people. I realized that the reason I would freak out in my family was because of different things that caused me to have trust issues. I came to believe that the reason I had odd quirks, such as being territorial or when I freaked out because my food cabinet was too low, was because of the experiences I had growing up. Learning these things about me caused more issues because I had to fix them. But I thought I had to fix everything simultaneously. I later realized that was just making things worse. By learning how to process my emotions, I learned how to be self-aware. And by being self-aware, I became super nitpicky about myself and even more insecure. One thing I learned is I have to focus on one thing at a time and take one day at a time. After I stopped focusing on everything at once, I was able to master things way faster and grow each week. My whole life, I have been taught to do whatever it takes to accomplish what needs to be done. Still, I assumed that advice and ran with it because I became a workaholic and used working as a coping mechanism to deal with my anxiety, because when I was working, I kept my mind off of everything else. When I stopped moving, I would either become physical sick or have a panic attack. All my emotions would flood me because I would suppress everything for weeks or even months at a time. Over time, I started to change. When I turned 18, I started to lead teen groups, and I loved CR people. Because I realized that although a few of you were crazy, most people are amazing and loving. When I decided to change my attitude towards CR, I started to grow. I realized that my pride was what was keeping me away from growing. Shortly, Pastor Lane asked me to be his assistant at CR and learn how to do CR and ministry. The first year was challenging for many reasons, but it was worth it. I learned how to love people that they thought would never be able to be loved again because of their past. As I continued working at CR, I continued to gain responsibility and learned how to lead people 2 to 4 times my age. Over the years, I learned God has empowered me to use my skills and knowledge of what I've been taught in leadership to help and love others. I struggled with a whole lot of insecurity about being insufficient, unworthy, and too young. But 1 Timothy 4:12 helped me. Do not let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. CR has taught me how to love people who might be hard to love, give people a chance who are running out of opportunities, and invest my time in people whom others may not be willing to invest in. When I was 15, I knew I was called into ministry, and CR allowed me to learn new skills, patience, and other things I will need to learn as I continue my path to ministry. Now I love this ministry. I love my family. I'm 2 years from my last relapse in porn. I have processed through my resentments towards my family. I have forgiven myself for my mistakes, and I am learning how to slow down and not use work as a coping mechanism. I'm learning how to stop allowing my anxiety to control me. Philippians 4:6-7 says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Through learning this, I've accomplished many amazing things with God's help. Pastor Randy told me that I should begin working on my GED because at this point, even if I had a homeschooled high school diploma, it would have been worthless. I didn't have the education to go along with my diploma. I was at a 4th grade math level, 7th grade English level, and 9th grade read level by the time I was 18. So I started my journey to complete my GED. I had cut my time at work to 20 hours a week, and I started going to a GED class that helped me with reading and English 20 hours a week. I then realized that I would not be able to go through the math portion without someone who could teach me. So I reunited with an old family friend who is in our homeschool network, and she offered to help me for free. We went through basic math, geometry, algebra 2. We started with algebra 2, but she quickly realized that I would have to go through basic math. I spent 20 hours a week with her, plus the 5 to 10 hours of homework that we had each week. She also taught me how to do the basics of science, social studies, and how to write my first paper. I started this journey in January 2018, and in May 2018, I passed the GED. I went through 10 years of high school in 5 months. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done at the time. My first year of college was challenging because I had just taken a crash course in school and knew enough to get my GED. But there was much more I didn't know. In August 2018, I enrolled in Evangel University through the Ministry Training Center at First NLR. Now that has been the most challenging yet rewarding thing I've ever been a part of. I learned how to type, use Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, write academic papers, wash my clothes, iron my clothes, wake up before 1 p.m., get organized using a schedule, and general life responsibilities, aka adulting. Though school was new to me, so was living on my own and doing things independently. The first year was so hard on me that I had multiple mental breakdowns because I didn't know how to deal with my stress. I wouldn't sleep and I would keep working. I became a workaholic who gave up on most of my friendships, and I was rude to the people I lived with. I felt the pressure to be perfect, although there was no logical reason that I should have expected excellent grades in school. But there's a lot of good things that happened to me during that first year. I made 2 B's and 7 A's. I started to get out of my shell and force myself to do things outside my comfort zone. I learned how to lead others, speak in public, and became more disciplined in my personal life. Because God helped me through this, I have been able to accomplish many things I never thought would be possible. For example, my goal for missions. When I was 17, I went to Zanzibar, Africa. And I knew from then on that missions were my passion and my calling. Then God called me to go overseas and preach the good news to the unreached. Steps 8 through 9 was the most challenging and yet most healing steps that I went through. I was prideful and I thought I could do no wrong. But when I took away my pride and accepted my part, I was able to grow. When I decided to forgive others, I was finally able to forgive myself. And when I was able to forgive myself, I was able to experience peace. To the newcomer, you belong. You are not as unique as you think. Nearly everyone here once thought that they did not belong here. Don't let your pride get in the way of your personal growth as it did me. My entire life, people thought I was a perfect child because I didn't act up outside of my house. I was taught how to be respectful to others. I was shy and quiet growing up. God called me into ministry at a young age, and I was great at memorizing the Bible. I was a GMA graduate and Royal Rangers, but deep inside, I needed CR just as much as anyone else. I was broken. I had hurts, habits, and hang-ups, and so do you. So stop lying to yourself. And to the people that come every week and have been here for years, serve. Stay humble and give into the program that has served you. Many people here are faithful attendees. Now it's time for you to be devoted volunteers. People who don't invest miss the beauty of how ministry truly works. If you believe this ministry is just a place to talk about your addiction and then go home, you're wrong. And you will never grow. This is a place to work on yourself, experience God's love, and show others how to experience the same works of God's grace that you have received. Be joyful, don't be selfish, and share what you've experienced with others. Thanks for letting me share.
You know, I just realized too, Micah, you could have a career in broadcasting. Yep. Just the facts. He's awesome. What a great, first of all, let's thank him again. It's amazing. So there are several of you here right now that you don't want to be here. Somebody dragged you into this room today. And you came kicking and screaming. Maybe a judge sent you here. Maybe it was a nagging wife. Or maybe, just maybe, you dragged yourself in here realizing that you really, really needed help. Whatever brought you here today, I want you to know what he said, Micah said, you belong here. This is a place where you can be honest. You know, he shared a couple things that just really hit me. You know, you're not unique. None of us are. We all have such similar problems. They just come in different brands. And what we do is we act out, and then we wonder, how did that happen? This is a place you can learn how that all happened. And then you can be like Micah. You can grow to be more like Jesus. You can work through those hurts that have just kept you stuck for so long. And God will use you in incredible, incredible ways. I want to thank my friend Micah for sharing his heart tonight. Let's give him another really, really big hand. And I want to invite you to stand right now. This is a special, special song. I think it's going to speak to each and every one of you. Press into Jesus.
Before I knew my name, before I drew a breath, he was making ways for me. Now and every day, in each and every step, he is making ways for me. And when my heart is full of doubt, it feels like faith is running out. I've come too far to turn around. I know God will work it out. God will work it out. One thing I know, one thing I found. God will work it out. Yes, he will. Thank you, Jesus.
Pushing past the fear, fighting to believe. He is making ways for me.
And he won't let me down, never ever leave. He's still making ways for me. And when my heart is full of doubt, it feels like faith is running out. I've come too far to turn around. I know God will work it out. I know God will work it out. One thing I know, one thing I found. Yes, God will work it out. Come on, you try it, you say that God will work it out. Yes, I believe he will. God will work it out. One thing I know, one thing I found. I know my God will work it out. Be encouraged. Be encouraged. I know he will. Be still, my soul. Be still and know. Lean in and take hope in God alone. Be still. God will work it out. God will work it out. One thing I know, one thing I found. God will work it out. Sing it with us, just say, God will work it out. I believe He will, and God will work it out. One thing I know, one thing I found. Oh, God will work. I want you to keep singing that. Just keep singing that. Say, God will work.